So the agenda for today, do a little introduction to give a little context for who I am and what we're doing here. And then we're going to talk about the framework that this is a part of. This is one workshop that could be part of many more workshops. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the mindsets for list building, talk about some things you want to do before building your list. We'll go through some steps of building the list. I'm going to do a case study. That's going to be a B2B example. And then I'd like to do like an interactive list building session with you all for more of like a B2C example, or to just take one of your businesses and we'll work it out live, or take a couple businesses and work it out live together. So be thinking about that, because I'm going to be looking for your participation definitely at that point. If there are things that are unclear, feel free to jump in and ask questions along the way. This isn't something that I go around the country doing a public speaking tour about this. This is just something we put together in advance of our first customer program that's coming up. But some background on myself, so most of you know me, but for the sake of the video that's recording. So I'm the, I guess formerly mentor in residence, now entrepreneur in residence. I don't even know what my title is exactly, but here at Surge, so I've worked with a lot of you over the last couple of years in various ways, so just really love working with people who are starting their businesses, early stage. I have built 3 startups myself from 0 to 30 plus employees. After it gets to about 30 employees, that's where I start to lose a little bit of interest and I move on to the next thing. Don't know why, but I do. I've consulted with a dozen more startups in mostly helping with early product market fit and idea validation. So sometimes from the product side, other times from the marketing side. Today we're very much going to be talking about the marketing side. This is all just a teaser for the Surge First Customer Program, which I hope some of you participate in, or you recommend this to any of your friends who have a business that has been, the idea has been validated, but you're trying to get your first customers. For some businesses that means getting the first 10 customers, others it's the first 100 or 1,000 customers. But our program, which is launching in the fall, is going to help you go through the building blocks, which I'll show in a second, to go out there and successfully sell and get your first customers. So it's going to be a mix of lecture and education, and also some support as you go out there and you sell. So in that first customer program, we're going to talk about all these different building blocks, which then support your sales efforts in the early days. The building block that we're going to talk about today is list building over on the right-hand side, but you can imagine workshops on all these other building blocks that we'll talk about soon. Those other building blocks are personas and messaging. You kind of have to have that down first. So in our talk today, we're assuming you already have that down, that you know your messaging and you know your personas. And then crafting an offer. So what are you actually going out there and selling? What are you putting in front of your prospects? Economics of what you're offering. Are you offering a $10 widget or a $1,000 white glove service? What is it? But you need to know your economics and your targets before you go out there and you sell. So for list building, there are different types of lists. There's I classify in this way, but there's other ways to classify it. But there's community, followers, partners, and sales prospects. Today is mainly going to be focused on sales prospects. That's more of my bread and butter. But you might have other interests, and there's some overlap certainly. But community is if you're just trying to rally a bunch of people around a common interest or cause. Recently, I started an adult baseball league, and I had to do that, and so I had to drum up people, and so that's more of a community thing. Followers, if you're just trying to build your brand, your influence. If you're like a politician trying to get people to vote for you. Partners and collaborators, if you're just looking ways to expand your existing business, expand your reach, which definitely overlaps with sales prospects. But today we're talking about building out a list of people that you're going to go out to and try to complete a transaction with. So there are a couple mindsets that I'm going to come back to as we are talking about this today. And you guys, a lot of you have already heard this from me before, but the first is think exponentially, and the second is multiply by 10. So in list building, you definitely want to think exponentially. It's really exhausting to go out and reach out to each person individually, one after another, and and they're just, and maybe you lose some of them, and you just keep trying to refill the bucket of leads. That's exhausting. So you want to think exponentially, and you can start small and it grows pretty quick. So this example here, you can think of it in two ways. The first way is, let's just say you're going out and you're going to your existing network and you only know 3 people. If you ask those 3 people to refer 3 other people, and that just starts to grow pretty quickly. In just 4 rounds, you're up to over 100 people on your list. Or you could think about this as spheres or people who have influence over others. So you want to find those force multipliers, those people who have access to other people, and your list is going to grow a lot quicker. So you want your growth of your list to come from those referrals or force multipliers. Next is multiply by 10 rule. In the beginning, you don't really know. Everyone asks like, oh, how many people should be on my list? How many people should I sell to? And you don't really know. So I just use the the rule of 10 or multiply by 10. And for every step in your funnel, you want to multiply that number of people in that step by 10. So in a very basic sign up, or a very basic funnel, let's say you want to get to 10 sales. You need to multiply that by 10 to get 100 signups, multiply that by another 10 to get the number of impressions in order to hit your goals. So, I mentioned earlier there's the building block of the economics. You need to know what your target is. You need to know if you need to have 10 sales or 100 sales or 1,000 sales. And that greatly impacts what your funnel looks like. Now, you might have more steps to your funnel, like let's say you have a free sign up and then you want to get the free sign up to become paid, and then you have another round of multiplying by 10. These numbers will change as you start getting real data, of course, and hopefully you can outperform that, but that's just a good way to think about it initially, to understand the size of how many people you need to be reaching out to. Okay, so before building your list, so structuring your list, I do have a link to a spreadsheet that I use, and I'll make sure that all of you have that. But I find myself coming back to the same spreadsheet over and over again as I build these startups, and eventually I move to a proper CRM like a HubSpot or ActiveCampaign. That's what I tend to go to. But you can start with a spreadsheet, and if anyone tells you otherwise, just don't listen to them. Just keep it simple. You use a piece of paper if you need to. And in fact, Carol, I've seen you just write down all the people that you know on a list, and that's all you need to start off with. But I'll share my spreadsheet template with you, but there's just a few tabs in it to help you keep track of everything. And then set your goal. So it's pretty pointless to go out there and just start swinging in the dark if you don't know what your goals are, how many people you need to talk to. Building a list of 100 leads is very different. The tactics are very different than building a list of 100,000 leads. So you need to know your goal, and again, know your economics before going out there. I have a note here. Don't worry about the profitability of your sales in the early stages, because it's probably not going to be profitable, because it's going to be your time knocking on doors. But you do want to measure it as you're going along, so you know if it's going to be a viable channel for you in the long term. Okay, now we're getting a little bit closer to list building. So no one likes this one, but you have to start with who you know. And no one likes selling to their own network because they feel like they're just bombarding their people, and no one likes to be sold to, all that stuff. But the reality is, if your people that are closest to you are not going to champion for you, and they're not going to sign up, they're not going to listen to you, they're not going to give you the 30 seconds to listen to your pitch, you're doomed when you go out to strangers. So definitely start with who you know in your target persona, and then keep in mind that first mindset of allowing for exponential growth. If you know 3 people and they know 3 people, you're going to be in good shape. So I always start with my personal network, and I'll show that in an example later on, and I ask them for anyone they know, at least 3 people. Like, I leave every conversation with 3 other people that I should be talking to, and that's just a really good way to build your list in the beginning. If you don't know anyone in that target persona, then you might be in the wrong space. You might be selling to the wrong people. You should try to sell to some space that you have some experience with, or go build those relationships before going out and selling. And then my last note here is grow in your community or grow a community. The people who are most successful are the people who are just already in a community, and they're just selling to the people that they already know, selling to people like them. And if you don't see that community already, then go out there and try to build your community, build your tribe. So some things to consider. I'll come back to this later on when we're doing the live list building exercise. But these are some things that are running through my mind whenever I am building a list. So it might be hard to read, but first off, can I identify customers at the time that they are considering purchasing? So sometimes that's very difficult to pick up on. Ideally, you know exactly the signal that they're looking to buy. So like if someone is searching for white sneakers, it's really easy to get in front of them with Google Ads or something like that. But other things might be harder to pick up on. Carol, I'm going to come back to you just because we've been talking so much recently. You know, with your business focusing on homeschooling, like when is someone thinking about homeschooling and pulling their child from school? Like, is it seasonal? What are the signals? You want to think about, can you identify that person at the time that they're considering purchasing? So that's going to be a signal you can pick up on when you're building your list. Will customers of existing alternatives consider purchasing another product? If so, how can I identify customers of that existing alternative? So if someone's already bought your competitor, will they buy yours? And then can you build a list of people that bought all of your competitors' products, and then you can go after them and market to them. How do target personas get their information? This is a really big one. Steve and I were talking about this earlier, but you need to know what are their trusted sources of information, because you can work upstream of that, and that is how you can start to build your list. How do my target personas appear online versus in the real world? So, sometimes people are very proud to announce that they're in this target persona. Other times they don't, especially online. Like if you think about someone who has to wear orthopedic shoes for someone who's a shoe collector, someone who's a shoe collector is going to be bragging about that, right? You can pick up on that, but someone who wears orthopedic shoes, they're not going to be bragging about it on their social media profile. So you have to think about that. Is it something that they're like proud of, and you can go, find everyone who has that in their Instagram bio, or are you going to have to dig a little bit deeper? Do any existing lists or directories exist already? So I did some work for Hudsonville Ice Cream, and they wanted to expand their market, and they wanted to go after some of their competitors' ice cream shops. And so the competitor had listed all of the ice cream shops in the country that sold their ice cream, right? And so that was very easy for us. We said, okay, so we went through that list, and then programmatically built up, then went to the websites of those shops and got the contact information for all those shops, and we reached out to those competitive ice cream shops and said, hey, maybe you should consider Hudsonville Ice Cream. So those are something to keep in mind. A lot of these times the lists and directories already exist, so try to look for those before building your list from scratch. And then, are there any public records that signal that they are in your target persona? Like, when someone buys a house, that creates a public record. So Gillette razors, they're famous for, or infamous for, sending every 18-year-old male a razor, right, when they turn 18. Well, they get that in a couple of ways. Like one, if you register to vote, they can pick up on that, or register for service, you can pick up for that. And then also they were buying from this, there's this company that builds up a list of high school age students, and they just buy that list and then market to that. But are there any, you want to look for any public records that signal that they're in your target persona. So, a case study. Recently, I did the most difficult list building that I've ever had to do. I had to sell the product that was most difficult to sell. So I want to talk about that one. This was just a few months ago that I had to do it. So it's for a company called Observe IQ. This is not, I say it's difficult to sell. This is not an insult to Observe IQ. It's just in a very niche space. It is enterprise software for IT professionals. It does this very specific thing that is boring. It is not sexy. No one cares about it, and it's very hard to find the people out there who would want it. So when I came on board, there were just a couple customers, and it was $3,000 customer acquisition cost to bring in a customer. Fortunately, it is a very expensive product, so they could kind of tolerate that, but that wasn't great for long term. And we set a goal of seeking the first 100 customers at an acquisition cost of closer to 100. Anything under 300 we're going to be really happy with. So this wasn't easy, and I had to try. I'll have to find my spreadsheet, but I think I tried like 50 different experiments to finally get a couple that worked out. But I started with my network, and I actually just direct message people on LinkedIn. I said, hey, I'm doing this work. Do you know anyone who might be interested in this? Like, I know you're an IT professional. I think you might do something with this. What do you think? And I tried a couple different messages. I actually track all my messages in a spreadsheet. I label them. They all have their own little ID, so I know. And I measure if people are replying to it, which I think I might have. So you can see up here in my spreadsheet here, for my message, like those are all N2, and then I would columns cut off, but I would track if it was replied to or not. So I know which messages are working more. So sometimes I include a reward, like I say I'll give a gift card. Other times I use competitive products, like it says Elk Stack or Splunk. So I see which of those messages are working. But I'm starting with my personal network, and I'm just seeing what their feedback is and see what the questions are. So like I know when I messaged Tom there, he replied back like, oh, so is it like this thing? Does it do that? Or would this team in my company work with it? And so then I started finding out like what their reactions were to what I was saying before I went out and I ran Google ads or paid to sponsor groups or something like that, and my messaging was way off. So I started with a personal network, and I knew like 10 people in the space, but that was a place to start. And after I exhausted my personal network, I then went to, I did something a little cheeky. I went to betatesting.com. It's a site where you can pay people to like use your product and give you feedback, which I actually wanted their feedback, but I also believe that if people use the product, they would love it and keep using it. So it ended up costing me like $20 to pay people to use my product, and then they just kept using it, and then they referred other people to it, and it was a great strategy. So like this is something you wouldn't think of. Like I was just, there's a pretty innocent way to go about it. You just go and ask for feedback, and an unusual site like that, and it worked really well. So that site allowed me to target people that were working with the specific technologies and have the right job titles, all that. So I used that to build up the list and start to understand too, like which people, so we learned that there was a certain job title that did like it, another job title did not like it, and we changed a lot of our messaging because of that. Then I actually used an HR tool called Human Predictions, because we realized we needed to go after these developers and DevOps professionals who were working with these very specific technologies, and this HR tool, recruiting tool, allowed you to find those people. So we used that to go build up the list. So it's kind of like an unusual way to go about it, but we use a non-traditional tool. We use an HR tool to actually find people for our sales list. And then we also use that to find out which meetup groups they were members of. And we started targeting user groups. So we built out a list of all the user groups, went to meetup.com, found all the user groups that seemed relevant, how big they were, started reaching out, found out what the cost of sponsorship was, all that. But we reached out to these user groups to just to see if we could sponsor it and see if anyone would be interested. And then we went a level deeper, where we started reaching out to members of that user group. So we would say, we had this strategy where we were going to sponsor the user group in 30 days. And so 30 days before that, we'd start reaching out to the members of the user group saying, hey, we're gonna sponsor soon. We sponsored at the Lansing DevOps. And then I used our local connection that we're in Michigan to push the product, and ask them to just check us out, give it take 10 minutes of your time, here's some docs and some integrations, and that was it. So we built up the list by finding the user groups, and then find the people that were in the user groups, which again, we could use that HR tool to do that. And I'm gonna share a list of tools that you can use that are alternatives to this for prospecting, for finding contact information, all that. So I'll share that because human predictions isn't going to be right for everyone. And then finally, we found Slack and Discord servers and Reddit groups where people were talking. We just jumped in. We just started having conversations, and we direct message users, and we built up our list that way. I guess the last thing that we did was product hunt, and we did G2 campaigns. So we found out that there was hesitance to talk to us because we're a new product and there are all these existing products out there. So we went to a website called G2, which does software reviews, and we ran a campaign there. We found out that if we got 10 reviews, and we'd show up on their grid of preferred products, and so we made a push. We heavily incentivized people. We used betatesting.com to get people to give us reviews, and then we just had people signing up like crazy after we got to that, after we got 10 reviews and got into that favorable position. So all that led to a $10 to $50 customer acquisition cost, and it was repeatable, scalable, and we did this in about like 45 days. So we went from 3,000 acquisition costs in like 2 customers to over 100 customers and $10 acquisition cost in just 45 days. So that's my case study. And I'd love to actually work with you guys and do some kind of like live list building. If no one,
Jamie was here.
What's that?
I wish Jamie was here. She's on vacation.
I know. Jamie is the example I'm going to fall back to if no one wants to volunteer.
Sure, there are many people here that would love to use their product or service as a test.
Let's talk about some ways. Let's go, Maya.
Do I get up?
No, you don't have to use it. Do you want to just tell people what your business is?
I sell head adjustable. That's what solid wood surfaces. The wood is Michigan sourced.
Nice.
Like this. Better.
These aren't height adjustable.
Oh, I adjust. Sorry, I missed that.
Cool. So based off of that, let's do a couple of the steps before building the list, but setting a goal. So Maya, I know you already have your goal because we talked about this before, but are you trying to have 10 people buy, 100 people buy, or 1,000 people buy? What gets you to your next inflection point?
10 people.
10, okay. So then when we're looking at our funnel, we're probably something like this, where we probably want to be talking to 100 people. 100 good conversations will lead to about 10 people purchasing, and we need to make impressions on about 1,000 people. So the good thing is we don't have to like go out and do some mass marketing to millions of people. So we can probably throw away the ideas of like doing Facebook ads or doing Google ads. It's just, we don't really need to do that right now. We can do some smaller scale strategies. So do you have your persona pretty well developed? Do you know who's going to purchase?
Yes. People in professional industries. I've had a lot of managers thus far. Managers in construction and marketing development. And I just had Start Garden over in Grand Rapids by West as well. So I'm also targeting co-working spaces.
Nice. Okay, so going through these questions then, can you pretty easily identify them at the time they are considering purchasing? So are you able to find these professionals that are looking for the desk, like when they're purchasing? And also, is that when you've been having success?
Yeah, and also when people are moving, that's an indicator if they change jobs.
Okay.
So I stalked their LinkedIn profile.
Is this for home use or office use? I mean, I know the co-working space is office, but are you looking at home offices or?
Mainly home.
So, you mentioned when they're moving, so public records, when they move, you can tap into that. There's actually, there's like mymove.com or whatever. There's a bunch of sites that you can partner with, and they'll get your message out to people when they move and in a certain area if you wanted to, but when they move, that's public record, so you can pick up on that. And just like you said, when they change jobs, that's also something you can pick up on. So that HR tool I mentioned before, human predictions, but you could use other, there's human predictions is more, by the way, is more focused on like technical people, but you might find that you said engineering, like engineers seem to care about this, so it might actually be a good tool to use, but you could start building up a list of people that have recently changed jobs or about to change jobs, and you could target them that way. You'd be like, hey, I see you just started this new company, and I know they're remote work. We thought about desk from home, so might be a way to do that. Do you have any clue how they're getting their information currently? Like, how are they considering purchasing?
I'm not sure how people find out about them just yet. A lot of people say that someone told them about it, or I'm on a different platform where I sell my desk to that, and I've gotten a couple of sales to that platform.
Nice. So then, going back to this, like, if you have a couple of sales, I'd definitely be hitting that referral campaign pretty hard. With referral campaigns, you have to think about what's in it for them and how to align it with what your product is. So the easiest referral program is like, I'll just pay you, I'll give you money, and that works really well for if that's what your target persona is looking for. So an example would be like a banking app, or like Square Cash, Venmo, Robinhood. Those types of apps, they'll pay you to refer friends because you are there to make money when you're using that app, or save money, and so it's a nice incentive. But there are other types of incentives you can offer, and one of my favorite things is thinking about how the experience with your product gets better if your friends are involved in it too. So, what's the cool, and it might be a stretch with your product, but like, how does your customers' experience get better if their friends also have your product, right? And aligning referral program around that. That way you don't have to just keep giving out $100 a year, $50 there.
Product add-ons are a good way to do that too. For the desk example, it'd be like, hey, we have an awesome built-in attachable extension, power bank cord that if you refer somebody, we'll send you that for free. And it's a $50 product on your website that costs you $20, and it's not like you're giving them $50, it's more like 20 out of pocket.
Any other ideas for Maya or anyone else?
Or accessories like desk lamp or things like that.
Yeah. Any other ideas for Maya before we move on to another idea?
So how would you, so for the co-working scenario, is she targeting co-working spaces that are announcing that they're gonna be opening, or ones that are already established? How do you see the difference there?
Yeah, there's a couple ways to sell to those co-working spaces. One, you can sell through the co-working space. So you reach out to those co-working space organizers and you say, hey, I want to offer a discount for all your employees, or all your members. You can do something like that. Or you could sell to the co-working space, like I think you did with Star Garden, right? It's just like Star Garden just bought the desks, right? It's just in their space. So you can do that. A third way, if you want to go after the members of the co-working space, is try to like find when people are tagging Instagram posts at that location. Like people are often tagging at Star Garden and all that. So you can programmatically build out a list of where all those co-working sites are, and then you can search for any images that are being posted or tagged there, any posts around it, or people talking about it. One of the other things I did with Observe IQ is I went out on Twitter and found anyone that was talking about any of the keywords, which, before I forget about it, there's a really cool website, I think it's called askthepublic.com or answerthepublic.com, but you can put in any phrase and then you'll find out what questions people are asking about that phrase. So I use that to just kind of understand what my target persona was considering when they were thinking about a product like mine and looking for similar words. But that's a tangent. I just want to get that out there because I love that tool. But yeah, so with the co-working spaces, I would just be reaching out to them directly. I'd make it very clear why this is valuable. I would be hyper local. You're big, your situation, it's Michigan wood, right? And it's handcrafted by Michigan hands, so it's got to, it's gotta be local, otherwise, you know, someone in California doesn't care, right?
What, like, and you might be covering this later, but when I think about like other list building things I've seen, it's about capturing email addresses somehow and then building this list that you're communicating with. Is that part of this also?
Yeah, yeah, the people usually say the Holy Grail is email or phone number. Phone number is actually better these days because spam filters aren't going to block you as much, although, you know, the phone carriers and Samsung and Apple are getting better at it. But you have to look at where your people live and capture that information. So sometimes just having a social handle is fine. If, you know, when we were jumping into these user groups, you know, on Discord servers, I never got their email addresses or phone numbers. I just knew their usernames, and that was fine too. But yeah, you want something that's reliable to reach out to them and direct access to them. Ideally, you're trying to get them to something that you have control over it. You know, social media right now is really tough with, you know, sometimes you get silenced, and I know you personally went through that with your business where sometimes you just don't fit the algorithm. And
It's canceled.
It is canceled, yeah. Yeah. So so you want to get people to your own platform, your own tribe as quickly as possible. So for my company that I run right now, Boom House, we're building up our own social network basically, or there's a tool called Circle that you can use to build your own community. Honeycomb's another one. But if you have a bunch of people who are kind of like rallied around the same topic, you can get them into your own group, and you can build up that community, and then you have your own platform to market to, which is really, in 2020s, that's what you should be doing, is building up a community, building up your own platform, because it's really expensive to market on other people's platforms. So that's all you're doing when you're advertising and marketing and selling right now, is you're just paying other people for their reach. You know, sponsoring a podcast or Google ads, all that is just paying other people's platforms. So build up your own platform, build up your own value.
So I have a thought. How about like getting to know some interior designers, right? People are big into since COVID, I'm gonna, you know, remodel my house. So that might be a person you connect with, and, you know, then maybe they like your product, so they're going to, you know, suggest it to whomever's doing, you know, gonna work at home and I need a better space, or I don't know, it's just a thought that came to mind.
Yeah, I have contacted a few interior designers. No response yet though, but I should keep trying. Yeah.
With the going back to co-working space, you can, so anyone who runs a co-working space, you can probably pick up on their job title on LinkedIn or some other, you know, public networks, and you can use tools like Apollo or LeadIQ to then get their contact information if their contact information isn't already on the co-working site. But I skipped over this question earlier, but it's something to consider is, how do my target personas assemble? Do they assemble with others like them, or are they the only one in the group? So an example is a singer in a choir versus a drummer in a band. So if these co-working directors, Amanda, you can speak to this, like you are talking to others, right? You go to the incubator conference once or twice a year, whatever, you know, and you're talking to others. So, you know, they can influence others where, you know, example of a drummer in a band, the drummer might not know other drummers. The drummer knows the singer and the guitar player and all that. So, yeah, so you have to, I'm working with a company out of Grand Rapids right now where they have a product for teachers, but they want to work upstream with the teachers, and there's this role called the support specialist, which influences teachers. And they're like, this is great, every one support specialist I get will influence 10 or 100 teachers. Cool, but the problem is those support specialists don't hang out together. There's just the one there, and they aren't talking to the support specialists of other school districts. So you have to know if they actually, you know, are they working alongside other people like them, or are they the one in their role? Because it changes how you're going to reach out to them, and like how you build up referrals and all that. So, anyone else have a business that they want to work
I think
on?
everyone sitting here does, or else you wouldn't be here.
Another thing I've done and I've seen done well is just like a basic giveaway, right? Especially with software.
Yeah.
Or like cheaper products. And that's one way like social media can work, or get newsletter signups, follow the link, or tag 2 friends and mention us in your story. That's just a good way to increase those impressions, because the people that are signing up are generally quite interested, especially in a West Michigan type scenario. If you have a hyper-local demographic, they like free things, and it works well. They'll give you just about any bit of information if it doesn't cost them anything for a chance to get something free.
Steve and I were talking about this a little bit earlier, but so one of the building blocks in our first customer program is going to be establishing your offer, and we use lean stack terminology for this, but there's something called a mafia offer that we generally recommend in the early days that you want to figure out and put out there. So the mafia offer is going to be an offer that's too good to refuse, and you want to go out there, push that out there, and if people are still refusing your offer, then your messaging or your persona is really off. So if you go out there and you say, I'm going to give you my product for free, it's going to solve all your problems, it's not going to take you any time, and or
And I'll pay you to do it.
I'll pay you to do it, right? Like, if you're doing all that, which I was running into that with that example I gave earlier, where like I couldn't pay people to use the product, and then we found out we were marketing to the wrong people. So you want to figure out what that mafia offer is, and then peel back from it later on to figure out what's the minimum that you can offer and still get a pretty good conversion, right? So, money back guarantees are always good to, to remove that objection if you have an expensive thing, like an example of a desk, you say like, just, you follow the mattress company example, just try it for 100 days. If you don't like it after 100 days, just give it back, right? No problem.
Good luck
So,
getting it back in the box.
exactly, yeah. It'll never come back, but yeah. So you can do something like that, but figure out what that mafia offer is and lead with it in the early days at least. All right. Well, I mean that's it from me, but I'll keep talking as long as people want to talk. But.
They may have questions.
What was that tool for finding what people's like phrases that are looking up relative to your product?
I have it right here. Either ask the public or answer the public. Ask the public. So yeah, the couple tools that I use in the very early days of figuring out like my messaging and my personas. So I'll use Google Keyword Planner. I use Ask the Public, Google Trends. You can also use other like SEO type tools like SEMrush, things like that. But I also, I've come from an engineering background, so I tend to do things more programmatically. So I also have like exported every conversation from a Discord server and then done a word cloud to figure out what people are talking about. But Ask the Public is a lighter way of doing that. So I will look at like Google Keyword Planner, and I'll take a competitor's site, and then I plug that in. I see all the keywords they're showing up for. And I take those keywords, plug them into Ask the Public, see how people are asking about that. What are the concerns about those keywords? Which I wish Reading Rock's book box was here so we could talk about that, because I actually did a little bit of research onto that one. But doing, I'm going to talk about it anyways. So Jamie's a member here, and she has a company called Reading Rock's Book Box, and they offer a subscription box, monthly subscription box, with books and activities to do with your kids. It's really nice, a great thing to do with your kids, and it's all in the hopes of promoting literacy. She comes from a literacy background, so she's trying to figure out how to market this, how to get the first customers, and so we looked at look at how people are buying subscription boxes today, and actually I might have it. Give me a minute. So subscription boxes today, So if you just, like, I did a search for book subscription box, it looks like there's about, 10,000 average monthly searches. Sometimes you're gonna do the Google keyword research and you're gonna find out that only 10 people a month search for your product, which is telling. If you see something like that where it's a very low search volume, then that means that people aren't looking for your solution probably as you've defined it. So you might have to market more towards the problem or the outcome, but not your specific solution. So in this case, a book subscription box, which could mean a bunch of different things, it goes beyond what they're offering. But there's about 10,000 monthly searches. Competition is high. It's about $5 top of page bid, so you kind of know what the cost to play is. It doesn't tell you how many people are going to sign up and actually purchase your product, but it tells you the cost of admission. But you look at the trends, and this goes back to 2018, and there are these spikes every so often. It happens in December, and that's because people are looking at subscription boxes as gifts, right? They're not buying them really for themselves. There's specifically this one with books. It gets to the holiday times and you're like, oh, I think they like to read, I'm gonna get them a book subscription. And so that's what happens in December. So with that in mind, Reading Rocks in this case, they either have to double down on that and figure out how to make this very attractive as something to gift to others, in which case you're probably waiting until the holidays to see a lot of your sales, or they don't want to do that. They want to actually make this something that parents buy for themselves and for their kids. So you have to shift this behavior and shift this thinking. So you probably can't market it like how the other subscription boxes are marketing, right? Because otherwise you're going to be stuck in this trap with everyone else. So now we don't have that solution yet. We're still figuring out how to solve that, but that is something we learned through doing a little bit of keyword research. But the good thing is that there is like a high search volume, and just anecdotally, I think a lot of parents can relate to the need of like, oh, I want to read with my kids, I just don't know the best way. In their situation, they're also figuring out, they found out that it's really expensive to do a physical subscription box, and the price point became a little off-putting for people, so they're figuring out how to add more value so that it's more of like a monthly experience instead of just a one-day experience with the product. But yeah, so use a tool like that and ask the public to find out what they can.
If you guys were to search the book subscription box and it had low monthly searches, what other route would you take to market?
So I would definitely start looking at the problem that we're solving instead of the solution that we're offering. So I would look at, okay, so what is the whole purpose of this? What's to promote literacy? So what are the searches around that? Like, are parents struggling with, teaching their kids to read or whatever? Or are parents looking for something fun to do with their kids? So I'd be searching for like more of the problems or more of the actions that the customers are going to be taking with it, and then see if people are searching for that, and then go from there. Then maybe position a little bit differently. So there's a bunch of mommy bloggers who talk about things to do with your kids and fun activities to do with your kids. Great, let's go there and promote it over there, instead of trying to get listed on a listicle that says top 10 subscription boxes. I don't want to go compete over there. I want to go over on those blogs where they talk about fun things with kids. The other thing is it's my opinion, and I don't know if Jamie's gonna do this or not, totally up to her, of course, her business, but I would start building up a following. I'd be giving away a whole bunch of stuff for free. I'd be making videos every single day. I'd be doing a lot on social. She has kids that she can do these things with. I'd just be doing all the activities and make this like digital experience, and then get people in for that. And that's you have like a free tier where people get stuff, and then $10 a month where people can pay for a little bit more, and then you get the $50 a month physical box if you want to do all these other things, right? Like you offer something for everyone, but I would be building up my community that way and find all the parents who want to be more engaged with their kids. So that's what I would do.
So Bryce, Bryce, can you talk a little bit about the first customer program that you're developing that will go more deeply into all of this? And
Yep, I will. Can I go back one step, because I wanna say something before I forget it.
Sure.
Okay, so to directly answer your question with, something I did in the past, so my company, Whom House, we offer, telehealth autism therapy services, we offer a parent coaching program that, we launched recently, and we started, we launched it with the idea that people were searching for coaching, right? Like, but no, you look at the search terms, no one was really looking for the coaching, but there were these specific problems that people were having. So, people, in our case, working with individuals with autism, turns out that potty training an individual with autism or a nonverbal individual was a huge pain that a lot of parents were looking for a solution for. So instead, we started marketing more towards that. We offered a course sequence. We offered something for free, and then there's an upgrade path that was all around solving that problem. And it happened to be parent coaching, but we didn't lead with this is parent coaching. It was just like we focused on the problem. So that's an actual thing that we did that made a huge difference. So now the first customer program. So you want me to talk about what it is and go over it and all that? Okay. So in the years past, we've done something called Boost Camp at Surge, and David, you can speak to how wonderful that is. That was more focused on people trying to validate their business idea, and that was a cohort model. And this year we're offering something a little bit different, where we are going for people who are a little bit further along, where they've validated their idea. They know what their product is. They know, going back to those building blocks, where they have some of this figured out, but it's not perfect. So they're not, they want to start selling, but they're not quite there yet. But they know what they've done. They've gone out, they've done 100 customer interviews. They know roughly what they're going to go out there and sell, but they just need to hone in their messaging, their personas, their offer, their economics and list building. So it is, I don't know if we have is it 8 weeks, 10 weeks? How long is it? I think we're still figuring out exactly how long it's going to
Yes.
be. But the first,
As long as it needs to be for them to.
yeah.
I'll take as much as I can get.
Yeah, the first 3 weeks are pretty intense because we're trying to get through all these building blocks as fast as possible. And some people are gonna be further along, they might be able to go straight to selling, but most people are gonna have to do some kind of refinement. Definitely, in the offer, and people probably don't have a big list to sell to, so we'll have to build up that list for them. So we're gonna work through those in the first couple of weeks, and then we're gonna get into then we're gonna send out the founders into the world, have them go sell to that list that they built up, make the offer, and then we're gonna work with them every week and iterate and try to improve and try to get to the that 10 sales that you need if it's a B2B, 100 sales or 1,000 sales if it's B2C. But it's a mix of education and coaching, and but we'll be there to support you along the way.
Yeah, so if you're trying to figure out this all sounds great, but where do I start? But then there's also Bryce as a coach here, as our entrepreneur residence that can help you if you don't wanna wait till the fall.
You don't wanna wait, yep. And we're gonna take each of these and we'll do a workshop similar to this, for each of those, and then compile it all into a video series that people can watch on their own. Because the first customer program is gonna be cohort based, and it's just gonna be once a year, so if it doesn't line up with the needs of your business, that doesn't help you, but we'll have these resources available for you anytime.